Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us once again, an old friend of mine and regular, Gregory Mannarino of TradersChoice.net. Gregory Mannarino, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.
It is great to be here, Greg, as always. Thank you.
Well, it's been a while since I've had you. You've been a hard guy to book. And so, but what I love about people like you and Ira Harris is that you can get the day-to-day analysis because you're a trader, even though you don't come on and give trading advice. You do that on TradersChoice.net, but you have this analytical mind. You have to. You couldn't trade if you can't analyze. Same thing with Ira Harris, but you get this analytical mind, this day-to-day trading, and also the big picture. It's twofer. And I want to bring this back. And here's my point about what you're doing. And I know you work for big banks and hire yourself out as consultants sometimes too. But I want to come back to when we first started. You said that the economic collapse would be of biblical proportions. And I got to tell you, when I first heard that, I thought, wow, that's pretty, strong words out there. But, if you're now looking at just recently, there have been strong words at the BIS about how Bank of International Settlements, how bad this is. Other big banking people are kind of warning that this is worse. Other analysts, Jim Rickards, this is worse than before. The banks are bigger. There's more leverage. It's Naomi Prinz, fewer institutions, more leverage. And then David Stockman, the former White House budget director, was on this week with Stuart Varney. And, of course, the guys in the Financial Channel are in denial. If we keep printing, it'll be okay. And David Stockman said, no, it's not going to be okay. It's going to happen. This is a former White House budget director, and he knows about big numbers. All of this to say what I'm going to say now. You're not out there by yourself. There are big people that you are on the same page with. And tell me what you're saying in one of your most recent videos, biblical proportions. What are you seeing?
Well, Greg, I'd like to say this too. People like yourself are getting through to the regular guy and the regular girl, and it's just so important. And that's really been my mission here too, is to try to let people understand that they need to engage themselves in what's happening around them. It is so critical. We've never been in a time like this in history. So this is what I see happening, and I've been going over this for a very long time. The financial crash, status post Lehman Brothers, that, Greg, was really the party over moment. And there's no other way to put it. The financial system, as it had been run since its inception, literally ended at that moment. What we have now, and this is the best way I can think of putting this, is we have a side effect which is terminal. And I'm referring to the economy here and the managed market that we now are in. Understand, Greg, and I know you get it, but I think what people don't understand at its most basic level, and it's just so critical to understand, is this. What made America great was its free market and less intrusive government. What we have now is a Federal Reserve managed market. There is no free market at all. The Federal Reserve has managed to steal that aspect of the market away and distort everything, create very dangerous aspects which are manifesting themselves to a greater degree every single day. So what we have now is a managed market and a government which keeps getting bigger by that day. We're watching a literal shift of ideology go on right before our eyes. It's epic. It really, really is. And it's almost like a new form of government is being installed right under people's noses here. We went from, again, a free market economy to a managed market economy. From an economy which was less intrusive and more run by the people to one that has been, again, stripped away and they do what they want. I'm talking about the people in Washington. Now,
let me interrupt you here. I want to interrupt you here. And to talk about the new government being put under our noses, what do you make of this then? Is this part of the theme that you're talking about, the Democrats coming out this week calling the Republicans? I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, but wow, calling the guys in the Congress, they're anarchists and they're terrorists. And it's a small group of people that just want their way. It's not a small group of people. Most people do not want Obamacare. That's what the latest riff is all about. So Ted Cruz is on the Senate floor with this, more than 21-hour filibuster. But they must be getting at them at home. I mean, the Democrats must be catching all kinds of grief at home for them to be responding this visceral and this, this. I've never heard another party call another party terrorists and anarchists. This is getting bad.
It's getting really bad, Greg. It just goes back to their agenda. There's an agenda going on here. It's been going on for quite a while. The agenda is this. They do not want a free market. They do not want a less intrusive government. They want a government that is involved in everyone's lives, that can force them to buy things. For example, Obamacare. I think this is a job killer of epic proportions here. Now let me put another perspective on this for those out there that may be listening. It's a concept that is so basic, but so poorly understood that I think we need to discuss it. What we have created here, Greg, and this goes back to the biblical collapse, is an alternate universe, an alternate reality that would not exist if we were not borrowing monies from the future to live a better now. We've literally deviated from a path that we would have been on. We've literally stolen monies from those that do not exist yet, the children, our children, who may be just born or going to be born in years to come. We've created a nation here of born debtors. A child that is born today, just today, is a born debtor in the United States, owing the government over $50,000, and that is going to keep going up. That little child who's done nothing is a debtor and owes the government money. They want to keep people enslaved through debt via this mechanism. It's very dangerous. Now, what's going on here with a system like Obamacare, and I want people to think about it. Now, we've been, covertly stealing monies from the future people that do not exist. Now, with Obamacare, we're taking monies from people that do exist. And I'm talking about the younger people out there that are being forced to buy into a system to pay for the older people and everyone else that's involved in this. It's another scheme, Greg. It's another scheme to consistently borrow more cash from the future to live a better now, basically. And the time to pay the piper is right upon us, and that's where the collapse comes in. All of these monies that are being borrowed from the future, this cannot go on in perpetuity. We understand there are those out there that say, okay, just keep borrowing and borrowing. Really, why? Well, it comes back to the very basic premise that we do not have an economy that is designed to create wealth. We have an economy that's designed to create debtors, like the child that's just born today, born debtor. This fiat monetary system built around debt, the relentless acquisition of debt, is vicious. And the only way it can function is by consistently borrowing more money from the future. And once we admit we can't do this anymore, once we acknowledge the fact that borrowing cash we can't keep doing this, it's over. Party over, moment done. We hit that moment back in 2008, but they're consistently fueling the bubble in debt, Greg. The bubble in debt we have on a global scale is, without a doubt, the greatest threat to humankind. Greater than a nuclear exchange, greater than Al-Qaeda. Because when that debt bubble bursts, Greg, and I've been over this has been my theme for a very long time. When that bubble bursts, resources will become scarce. That's really what it comes down to, through the mechanism of hyperinflation. And, Greg, we're going to have a loss of life on a global scale that people are not going to believe, on par with a nuclear exchange.
The dollar, let's talk about that. That's pretty ominous. The dollar is part of this collapse. So as the debt bubble explodes, the dollar also goes into free fall, and we have this hyperinflation. And that's one of the videos you've had out just this past week, the dollar free fall, and it will continue. A lot of people are saying, well, what? Gas is $3.50 a gallon, and, bread's only $3 or $4. It's not, we haven't had the hyperinflation yet. What say you to these people that say this?
Sure, there are reasons why that's going on right now as well. But think of it this way. A dollar bill, a $100 bill, these are not units of wealth. These are units of debt. Not only are these units of debt, but they're not even owned by the person that's holding them. They're owned and owed back to the Federal Reserve plus interest that they print out of thin air or add to a digital screen. The reason why we're not seeing massive inflation yet, Greg, and I have some charts here, maybe I can illustrate that for you, is because the economy is in this side effect. It's actually dead. It's not going anywhere. There's no money velocity. Money velocity, for those who don't understand what that is, very basic concept. It's the rate at which cash is moving through an economy or changing hands. We are at historic lows. Let me show you this chart here. It's pretty profound. This is a chart that goes back to 1959, actually. Okay, Greg.
Oh, boy.
This is where we are right now. We are at historic lows with regard to the money velocity.
Oh, boy, you're going back to the 50s. It's below any problem we had in the 70s, any problem we had at all.
It's at historic lows. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But what is at historic highs, Greg, since we're talking about the dollar? Look at this chart. This is the monetary base. This is what the Federal Reserve has done to the monetary base status post the party over moment in 2008.
This is the money held in the banks, not the general money supply, but the money that the banks are holding on to. It's skyrocketed.
Over 300%, Greg. And meanwhile, we have an environment. I mean, let's have a look. We have money velocity, historic low. Money printing at a rate we cannot even imagine.
And why are they holding the money in the bank? Are they afraid of they're going to need it and they're going to go bust and the derivative thing's going to unwind, so they're holding all this cash to keep themselves solvent? Why are they holding all the money in the banks?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that, Greg. The Federal Reserve is actually paying the banks to keep extra monies in reserve. They don't want the monies to enter the consumer side of the monetary base. Once all of this extra cash that's been printed out of thin air or added to a digital screen enters the consumer side of the monetary base, we will have explosive inflation. Now,
and you think that's coming?
Oh, without a doubt. Let's put another perspective on this. Okay, so we understand historic lows with regard to the money velocity. We have the Federal Reserve that is printing cash literally like there's no tomorrow. We also understand that nations of the world are backing away from the dollar. So what does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? It's a supply and demand issue of epic proportions that's being created here. There is a massive supply of these bills with very, very low demand. So anyone with even the most basic understanding of economics has to say, well, that's going to create an inflationary environment, a massive inflationary environment, Greg. And I'll tell you something else. We understand that we're in the biggest bubble in the history of the world, the history of humanity. We've never seen anything like this, the debt bubble. When that debt bubble bursts, all that cash is going to look for a place to go, Greg.
Oh, it's going to be like confetti in a balloon. Absolutely.
And then we're going to have a massive and hyperinflation. So what is that going to do to other asset classes? It's a very simple concept, Greg. And something I go over all the time. This cash, when it leaves the debt market, doesn't just go to money heaven. It's going to end up in certain assets. I mean, we understand the Federal Reserve has created an environment of very dangerous distortions across the spectrum. So when the debt bubble bursts, what is that going to do to interest rates? Very well, they're going to go up at an exponential rate. This will pressure equities, which will sell off rapidly. All of this cash is going to look for a place to go, Greg. It's going to go into commodities.
That's when gold and silver take off. What do you make of the CFTC stopping their investigation? After 5 years, the CFTC said, we can't really find anything wrong. I mean, there are people wanting the heads of the people at the Commodity Futures Trading Association, they had 5-year investigation. They looked for 5 years, and they couldn't find anything. Does that mean they're going to be able to continue to do what they're doing, or does that mean, it's going to blow up anyway? Don't worry about it. What do you think?
All right. This is another extremely simple concept. They can do whatever they want. They can twist. They can manipulate. Doesn't matter. At one particular point, they can lie as well, whatever. At one point, Greg, the free market will do its sole job. What is the job of the free market? What is it all about? It's about fair market value. That's really what it all is. And despite every single action that may be put forth by governing bodies, whatever, to try to manipulate this, all it does is create distortions in these assets. And there will be a snapback moment when all of it snaps back to a fair market value. And that moment, Greg, is going to rock the core of the earth. Like I said, the debt will correct to its true value. The stock market, commodities, it's going to,
bonds,
everything,
treasuries,
the whole thing. It's going to be rapid and it's going to be extreme. People are not prepared for this, Greg, and there's no doubt about it. Let me just just since we're on this topic, let me put another perspective on this for all of you out there. So, we've gotten, we hear people out there all the time, and they're out there beating up gold, and they're out there beating up silver, and it's just such a nightmare, and they just don't get it. Let me just show you a chart here. This is a chart of the U.S. dollar index, which basically values the U.S. dollar versus other currencies. This is a 50-year chart, almost 50 years. Have a look at this chart, Greg. Let me go over this so you know what's going on here. This downward trajectory here, this is the dollar index, or the dollar value based against other currencies over the past 50 years. This is what gold has done during the same time period. It went from $35 an ounce to $1,330 plus. Right. So this should illustrate for people why they should not be in paper. And let me just do one more thing, because people say, hey, that's a 50-year chart, blah, blah, blah. It's in the past. Okay, how about this? This is a 5-year chart. This is a 5-year chart of ticker UUP. This is the dollar bullish ETF. All right, let's have a look at this. What's happened?
My goodness.
Exactly. Look at
this is since they printed all this money.
Exactly.
5 years goes back to 2008 when they started pouring the coals, QE1, QE2, Operation Twist, QE2 Infinity. And then I love your Franken-taper.
Franken-taper, exactly. Well, we're going to talk about that in a second too. But look at this, Greg. All right, value of the dollar. This is a better gauge, in my opinion, compared to the Dixie, because that's a little misleading. But the value of the dollar has melted over the past 5 years. What's happened to gold during this past 5 years? It went from $872 an ounce to $1,338 today. So for those dollar bulls out there, do you think you got it right, or did the people that are holding gold and silver get it right? It's a no-brainer, Greg. It's a no-brainer. Yes, Franken-taper. That's what I've called it. It's not going to happen. There's no Octaper. That's what they're calling it in the mainstream media or financial channels. I call it Franken-taper because of Halloween. Not going to happen. There will not be a taper ever. This is the new norm. They're going to print and print to try to inflate their way out of this. They can't do it, Greg. We have a debt problem, and all they're doing is compounding it, creating a financial monster that's going to envelop the globe, Greg. When this whole thing again rears its ugly head. I've used that comment recently, but I believe that's the only way to put it. This is the greatest threat to humankind.
David Stockman says, he was telling Stuart Varney on Fox Business this week, and Varney was like, well, if we keep printing, we'll be okay. And no, we won't be okay if we keep printing. He basically said it's going to collapse. And you're in pretty good company with David Stockman, the former White House budget director. You're saying the same thing. Even if they keep printing, when they keep printing, it's not going to fix it. It's going to collapse. Is that right?
We've seen this before. We've been here, Greg. We know this. Every single type of a financial system like this, just go throughout history. They all do the same thing. At the end, they try to hyperinflate their way out of it. They add debt on top of debt on top of debt until the whole thing just explodes and implodes. And that's where this is going. There's no way out of this, Greg. None. Zero. People always say, is there a solution to this? There isn't any. And I believe the richest people in the world, they are not in fiat currency of any kind. They understand where they need to be. Countries of the world, Asia specifically, I've been over this. Why are they dumping their dollars faster than the Federal Reserve can buy them back? I'm referring to treasuries. Well, because they get it. Why are they hoarding gold? Because they get it. It's a very dangerous situation, Greg. It's, and I try to poke a little fun at it from time to time, and you've seen some of my videos. But again, it just goes back to what people need to realize. Forget everything else. Forget everything else. every other thing you may be afraid of or what the mainstream media is trying to make you be afraid of. This is the greatest threat to humankind, Greg, is a debt bubble.
Gregory Mannarino. Would have liked to have you on earlier, but I'm sure I'm glad you came back now. Thank you so much, Gregory Mannarino, traderschoice.net. Thank you so much for adding your perspective and analysis to what's going on in a crazy market. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, Greg. Thank you.